Hi, everyone. Just get settled in and we'll get started. My name is Julie Platt, and for those of you who I don't know, I have the honor of serving as board chair of Jewish Federations of North America. We've had an incredible few days, starting with the Unity event and then rolling right into the GA with so much amazing content and conversations. But this conversation is so important, and I'm thrilled that our few days together will conclude on this high point. Nothing is more important than our children and our families and the Jewish education they receive. My children are day school alums and my grandchildren are in day school, and it couldn't be more important now in this moment. So I'm thrilled that you took the time to be here today, and on behalf of Jewish Federations and our partners, Prisma, the Ministry for Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism, and UnitED, I want to welcome you to our program, The Future of Jewish Day Schools. Many of you came in just for this or extended your stay in DC to be here today. We know this and we appreciate it. I also want to thank and acknowledge our wonderful host committee, Martine Fleischman, Andrew Hochberg, Rena Koppelman, Gail Norrie, Ann and Jeremy Pava, Marty Scheck, Gary Torgo, Helen Zalek, and Richard Sandler. And on that note, I am honored to introduce my dear friend from Los Angeles, Richard Sandler, past JFNA board chair, past chair of the Los Angeles Jewish Federation, and a trustee of the Milken Family Foundation, and a very big Jewish day school advocate. Richard.
Thank you, Julie. Before we start, we have just finished an amazing 2 days. I think we focused on things that will be relevant to what we're talking about this morning. So once again, I want to thank Julie Platt for her leadership, for leading this GA the last couple days, for being my dear friend, and for making such a difference in our Jewish world. So please, for Julie. So we're going to start today talking about why now. Why is Jewish day schools important now? So for those of us that have been here for 2 days, I just made a few notes of comments that were made during these last couple of days that relate to why we're here today and why this is an important topic. Gary Turgo, when he started our chair of the GA, when he started, he commented that we are now going to be writing a new chapter, and how important it is that we be literate in writing that chapter of Jewish history in America. When Julie gave her outstanding comment yesterday, she talked about Hillel and Shammai, the importance of listening to each other, the importance of understanding different points of view. That is what education is. And of course, the importance of Jewish camping and Jewish day schools. We heard in a session here, I think in this room yesterday, about Jewish education, how it's important that our kids have confidence that they could be able to discuss these important issues, how complex they are. That means we don't teach our kids to be advocates, we teach them to be educated, who they are, where they came from, what is Judaism, why is it important, so that they can answer the complex questions and they understand different points of view. We heard from Barry Weiss today, and we heard from Dr. Britton, our scholar in residence, about the call to action that we have, about the warnings that we have received over and over and over again, and how all that is important. Sheryl Sandberg in this last session talked about what is going on in K through 12 schools, the curriculum that our kids are being taught in secular schools, and how important it is for us to understand Zionism, Judaism, and anti-Semitism. So that is why we're here today. I have the privilege of chairing a Jewish day school, the Milken Community School. Our head of school, Dr. Sarah Shulkin, is here in Los Angeles. We are the largest community Jewish middle school, high school in the country. And so we are focused on what is important today. The fact is, our future leaders, the GA, 20 years from now, will be populated by primarily, I believe, graduates of Jewish day schools and Jewish camping. And the reason is, every generation has a little bit of a dilution of understanding of our tradition. And that, when we, in the Jewish day school, we are teaching our kids, as I said a minute ago, what is Judaism? Why is it important? Why have we survived almost 4,000 years in spite of unbelievable obstacles put in front of us? Why do we make a difference in this world that is so disproportionate to our numbers? The why, to me, is Torah, and we need to teach our kids Torah. Torah talks about the complexities of life, how you address them, how we treat each other, how we make the world better. And that is why Jewish day schools are so important today. So I thank you for joining me on this journey, for joining each other on this journey as we go to make a difference. So first of all, we're going to hear from Jacob Wise. Jacob is a campus leader at George Washington University, and I think the president of the Hillel at George Washington. And Lynn Bellis Darwish, who we heard from at the beginning of the GA yesterday, who is a parent of a Jewish day school children, and she'll explain to me how, or all of us, how that happened and why that is so important to her. And after that, I will come back up here and introduce you to Wendy Rosoff. And on your tables, by the way, is this Investing in Jewish Day School, a case statement by Rosoff Consulting, which you should take with you. Do not read it right now, but you should take with you. I think it's got some very valuable information about what is happening in Jewish day schools. So without further ado, let me call up Jacob and Lynn, and let's get started.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Jacob Wise. I grew up in South Florida. I'm currently a senior at the George Washington University studying finance and real estate. I went to Jewish day school my entire pre-university life. Preschool and elementary school, I went to a school called Temple Beth Emet, and then for middle school and high school, I went to a school called David Posnack. I don't think anything could completely, I should also mention, last year I served as the co-president of the GW Hillel and the Jewish Student Association. Nothing could really completely prepare anyone for leading a campus during such a difficult time, complex, painful, nuanced time on campus. But looking back at the last year, I really feel, I feel confident that I was well prepared and I had the tools. If I didn't have the tool, I knew where to find the tool to tackle problems on campus and deal with the things going on. Like I said, my entire pre-university education was Jewish day schools. So naturally, when I was looking for college, having a big Jewish community, and importantly, a Hillel was very important. So fortunately, GW has a vibrant, very large Jewish community, and GW Hillel was my first stop. It kind of had that natural pull that you feel when, that natural comfort that you feel when you enter a Jewish space. So that's kind of where I started my involvement at GW. And last year was difficult. As you all know, I don't have to go into the details, but two things stick out in my mind. One was the encampment that we had at GW. We're 3 blocks from the White House. It was a place that people wanted to be and they felt they could advocate, and it was a very stressful and painful time for Jews on campus. And the second thing was in our Hillel, we put up the hostage posters on the inside of the windows facing a very busy street, purposefully inside so nobody could tear them down. One day we were going to get ready for Shabbat, and we had found some of the posters were taken down, which was painful for Jewish students. Fortunately, GW's administration was right on it, action was taken, so that had a good ending. As Hillel president, I had to step up and be there for my community of peers. And I was fortunate to have a seat at the table. And I really felt prepared to talk to administrators and campus leaders. And that comes from the academic rigor. Looking back, from looking now back on that experience, I can see how the things that I did in Jewish Day School really impacted my leadership abilities. And I think Richard was speaking about this. I had some sort of Jewish education as part of my daily curriculum, whether it was Torah, Israel history, and I think that really helped equip me, and it really made me confident, when talking to people that I disagreed with and talking about Israel on campus. And I always, when I was leading, I always remembered the things that the Torah taught me. And one thing that I really stuck to was always doing the right thing. I always tried to do the right thing, whether it was, complex planning an event, talking to an administrator who disagreed with me. I always tried to do the right thing. Just two takeaways I want you all to leave with today. I was well prepared and equipped, and no doubt that came from my Jewish Day School. I look back on my time at Jewish Day School, and it absolutely prepared me to have difficult conversations on campus. And number two is a little bit of criticism, and it's something, for all the leaders in this room to think about, is talk more about what's uncomfortable. I think as a student in high school, I wish I had learned more about some of the things that might be seen as negative that Israel did, so I would have had that tool. So talk more about what's uncomfortable. These are all foundational experiences and are essential to who I am today. And as I enter the business world, I know and I can see how I will continue to use these values and leadership skills from Jewish Day School.
I'm going to close this a little so I can see all your beautiful faces. Well, if he's an example of what my kids will become, I know I made the right decision to send my kids to Jewish Day School. If you didn't see me yesterday, I'm Lynn Abelis Darwish. I live in New York City. I have a very Israeli husband, and together we have two school-age children, Rose and Eve. Rose is 8 years old, and Eve is 6 years old. I grew up in my young childhood in the Bay Area. My whole family's a Niners fans now, thank you. And then we moved to Florida, actually. My parents had an idea because we didn't grow up around a lot of Jews. We would move to Boca and be around a lot of Jews. And so I was around Jewish people and my community, but I was never involved in Jewish Day School. And I honestly never considered sending our kids to Jewish Day School, mostly because we wanted to send our kids to a diverse, multicultural environment in their school, and we really thought we were Jewish enough at home. We enrolled our kids in one of the most prestigious and respected secular elite private schools in New York. It has a reputation for being one of the foremost trailblazers in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But even before 10/7, I felt that something was missing, and I was deeply concerned that the school didn't include us, we Jews, in their DEI narrative. So I got involved, and I advocated, and I worked hard. I offered them experts in Jewish identity and history and anti-Semitism to come talk to the faculty, to the administration, to work to change curriculum. I built a Jewish affinity group at the school as a safe space for other Jewish families. But all along the way, I kept hitting roadblocks, and I was really getting nowhere in my advocacy. I concluded that the administration really wasn't truly open to changing their ideas about DEI and how it was taught. And frankly, I didn't want to be complicit in my children starting to learn that in their classrooms. And then 10/7 happened, and it got even worse. And we felt very alone in our grief, and the school was really lacking in any support. We started to hear and learn of teachers wearing keffiyehs and watermelon being hung on doors and things like that. And we also learned in a classroom that Israel was being portrayed as a colonizer. And actually, the last straw for me was a Hanukkah celebration that I organized myself on my own dollar to bring the community together and enjoy some latkes and donuts. I was told that unlike other affinity groups, we could not put a sign in the lobby to invite the whole community, Jewish or non-Jewish. And that's when my husband and I turned to each other and realized we needed to leave. So we wanted our kids to be free to be Jewish and Israeli and be supported and uplifted in who they are and where they came from. And we quickly, at the end of October, took tours, set up appointments with admissions offices, and to find the space that looked best. I went full Jew. I looked at all the Jewish day schools in the city. And so winter break came and went. And in January, 3 months after the horrors of October 7th, my kids went back to school, but they started at a Jewish day school. So we made the bold decision to switch them mid-year to Rodef Shalom School in New York City. And it's a pluralistic, reform Jewish day school. It has been the best decision we have ever made as parents, period, full stop. We have a whole new community, both my kids, ourselves as parents. We've made new friends. We've gotten involved in the school. I've gotten involved in the school. I sit on a committee. I volunteer with admissions. I'm the third grade class parent, and I no longer feel that I'm swimming upstream trying to get a school to listen. But best of all, our kids are just blossoming. They are so happy. I have to tell you, the transition was seamless, and they were so warmly welcomed. They're learning to lead in the world, how to be critical thinkers, and to really love learning. And on top of that, the academic caliber of the school has been remarkable also. They're learning Hebrew. They're coming home singing songs in Hebrew. I have a lot of really cute videos of my 6-year-old. And they're learning about Israel and Zionism in a positive atmosphere. And for me and my husband, our experience is no longer about trying to get away from the problems of a secular school. We see how life-changing a Jewish day school education is, and now we want this for our kids for as long as possible. I mean, I'm already thinking about high school. So this has been a real true blessing for our family, and I can tell you without a doubt, because I personally know them, that there are more families like mine who are paying tuition at private secular schools, a lot, and debating what they should do. And they're yearning for a supportive community for their kids and family. They would be transformed, like my family, if they had the gift of Jewish day school education. And I think that we should be doing all that we can to help them find it. Thank you.
Which one is it? That's it?
We just have a small technical problem. At Jewish day schools, we never have these technical problems because our kids are so good at what they do that they could fix anything. Thank you. Look, you just heard from Lynn and Jacob. You know, we don't have to sell you anymore. I just still remember I was on a webinar a couple weeks ago with Alana Newhouse, who I think Barry mentioned earlier, who is the editor of Tablet Magazine. And she was interviewing Henry Bernard Levy, but she had 3 young college students up there with him that just were so impressive. and one went to NYU, one went to Columbia, one went to Harvard, and one of the things they all had in common is they all had gone to Jewish day schools. We have found that since really what happened, even pre-October 7th, but especially since October 7th, the number of families who probably had never thought about sending their kids to Jewish day schools that are making inquiry at our school has gone up exponentially, okay? It's a high number. Our responsibility is to make sure that we have the quality of the school and the capacity of the school now to serve these kids, which is all the reason why we're here today. So now let me call up Wendy Rosoff, who is responsible for the study that's on your table. Wendy is a principal and founder of Rosoff Consulting, and probably as knowledgeable about the trends that we see in this area as anybody, and I will let her share with us. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you. Ooh. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. All right, let me just see if I can arrange myself here a little bit better without knocking this thing over. There a little bit more. Okay, great, fantastic. Okay, hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank, where is she? No, I think I'm okay. Rabbi Dina Schaefer and Sarah Eisenman in absentia for inviting me here today to speak with you. It's really an honor and a privilege. It's also really nice to see so many familiar faces in this room, and some of you who I have not yet had the pleasure to meet. I look forward to continuing the conversation. I also want to acknowledge that I am speaking on behalf of my colleagues at Rosoff Consulting, and in particular, I want to point out Alex Thompson sitting in the back, who is probably, arguably, the world's foremost expert on Jewish day school education, and has been in more Jewish day schools, certainly in the United States and Canada, perhaps around the world, than any other human being I know. So if you really want to know the deal, go talk to him afterward. The third thing I want to say before I start my remarks, which are really going to be about sort of the facts and figures, is that I am the proud product of 12 years of Jewish day school education in Philadelphia. At two schools that don't have the names they used to have when I went there, because donors came along and gave them money, and then they changed the names. But that's okay, because that's what all of you are in this room to think about doing. So I am the proud graduate of Solomon Schechter in Philadelphia, which is now the Perelman Schechter School, and also the proud graduate of Akiba Hebrew Academy, which is the Barak Academy now. So just so you know that. I also am blessed to be married to a head of a Jewish day school, Peg Sandell, who is here in the room, head of Brandeis Marin, in her 11th year as head of school, which basically is 3 times the average tenure of any head of school. So go talk to her if you really want to know what happens in Jewish day schools every day. And I'm sure there's other heads of school. I know there's other heads of school in the room. There's one right there. And also our children went to Jewish day school as well. And I'm going to call out Gail Norrie and Holly Cohen, who went to Akiba along with me, so many years ago. And here I am back in the room with them all these years later just to show up, and I am not worthy, so we're all here. Okay, all right, that's enough of the personal side of things, but I do think that it's important to know the stories. So we are going to talk about the future of Jewish day schools, enrollment, affordability, and excellence. And the things that we're going to cover, that I'm going to cover in my brief remarks, are enrollment trends in U.S. Jewish day schools pre-2020, factors shaping school choice, signs of opportunity, sort of coming out of the COVID pandemic, and also post-October 7th. You've heard all of those things referred to today, and what Lisa what you just talked about. Basically, all of the data that I'm going to present are going to tell your story right here. So you're going to see it. I'm not going to talk about European precedents or other worldwide Jewish day schools, because I believe Asaf Gamzu is going to be addressing those, so I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to talk about financial considerations, and I'm also going to talk about a role for philanthropy and what many of you are already involved in and doing. So the first piece of data that I want to share with you is enrollment trends. This is in the United States, U.S. Jewish day schools, so this does not include Canada, pre-2020, so before the pandemic. In 1998, there were 26,961 students enrolled in modern Orthodox Jewish day schools. In 2018, there were 29,441 students enrolled in modern Orthodox Jewish day schools. That is an increase of about 9.2%. And in 1998, there were about 36,900 students enrolled in non-Orthodox Jewish day schools, and in 2018, there were 30,756 students enrolled in non-Orthodox Jewish day schools, a decrease of 16.6%. What I want to say is that these data end in 2018 because that was the last time the Avichai Foundation funded a full census of Jewish day schools in this country. It is high time that that happens again. Today, according to Prisma's estimates and our extrapolations, less than 10% of school-age children from non-Orthodox homes attend a Jewish day school. So you are one of the few. Okay, a little bit of, as my colleague Alex likes to say, theory here, and this actually comes from research in general education. So looking at public schools and independent schools. When parents are making choices around schools for their children, first and foremost, they're looking at academic reputation and curriculum, i.e. quality. The second thing they're looking at, and here it says religion and values promoted. What we're talking about here is primarily what are the values, and not just values we think about as like Jewish values and things like that, but also values of democracy and citizenry and things of that nature. So we know lots of Jewish families who choose public school as opposed to Jewish day school because they want their kids to be in an environment where some of those values of democracy and citizenship and all of those things are being espoused, and it's part of the system. It's part of the socializing system in this country. Not to say that our schools aren't doing it, but this is within the broader context. Discipline and safety, right? Parents want their children to be safe, and they also want appropriate discipline, and they want their kids to sort of be in an environment like that. And convenience, which relates to location and access, and then cost. Okay, so these are the four primary drivers of school choice. The obstacles to day school choice are somewhat on the inverse, but also a few other things. Awareness. Some families are just not aware that Jewish day schools exist, and if they're aware that Jewish day schools exist, they are aware of nothing else about them. And you went and did all that research, and think about what you had to do in order to make that decision. They're not prioritized, as I mentioned, right? Even Jewish families or Jewishly identified families, they don't necessarily prioritize Jewish education. That's going to be a hard one to change. Convenience and location. Our day schools are not always located in the most convenient places. I will tell you some stories in a minute from some interviews that we did that speaks to this question. Jewish day schools, I think arguably we would say that quality has really improved over these many years, and they are high quality schools. However, parents continue to have a perception that Jewish day schools are somehow lower in quality than a competing independent school, and if they're living in a very sort of high rent district with really good public schools, oftentimes Jewish day schools can't compete on quality either. at least in terms of parents' perceptions. And cost, right? Public school is free. Obviously, other independent schools are on par with Jewish day schools. We'll talk a little bit about the financial considerations when we get there. But I do want to just say a couple of things related to some of these points. In terms of quality, certainly the data that we have that relate to things that are associated with quality include access for diverse learners, professional development for educators, leadership development for the top administration, investment in technology, and the integration of learning theories. These are the 5 things that are associated with academic quality. And certainly, Jewish day schools, I think, as far as the ones that we've researched, are all doing really excellent work in all 5 of these domains. It's probably little known to potential buyers, to potential parents. The other thing that I want to, I'll share more in a minute here. So in terms of overcoming these obstacles to day school choice, quality, we've talked a little bit about. Cost, we're going to talk more about. This is the conversation today. And awareness, right? So we know that, for example, the NorCal Jewish Day School Group is doing a marketing campaign that's really designed to sort of increase awareness overall in the community of Jewish day schools. But there's clearly awareness work that can be done. And convenience and location is a real question in terms of where the demographics are shifting in particular communities and where day schools have sort of always been. So some of them are moving, some of them are not able to move. Signs of opportunity. The COVID-19 pandemic. This is according to research that was done by the Prisma folks. So Paul and his colleagues, where's Paul? Yep, in the back, okay. So these data points may foreshadow a shift in the behaviors of American Jews driven by a decline in confidence in both secular and public schools on the one hand and a search for Jewish community on the other. So in December of 2022, Prisma, in its survey of schools in its sort of network, over 300 schools, about 135 schools responded to the survey, so this is 40% of their schools reporting in from the polls, as it were. 54% reported increased enrollment from 2020 to 2022. 11% reported stable enrollment, and 34% reported declining enrollment. From that, Prisma estimated that between the 1920 and 2020-21 school years, there was roughly a 2% overall increase in Jewish day school enrollment, and an additional 3% bump in the 2020-21 and 21-22 school years. And I know Paul just mentioned to me yesterday that from was this last year, Paul? Another 1.5% bump or something like that, right? Is that right? Yes, no? Okay, thank you. Another potential sign of opportunity here is post-October 7th. So as you all know, Jewish Federations of North America has been conducting these pulse surveys, and post-October 7th of parents with eligible school-age children, roughly 40% answered a question indicating that they were reconsidering school or summer programs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. And Prisma, on the flip side, also in their spring of 2024 survey of schools, where they had about 35% of their schools reporting in, 60% reported new students enrolled or projected to enroll. So again, these are potentially signs of opportunity. Financial considerations. This is my second to last slide. I'm going to wrap up here in just a second. I think all of you know this, these data, but here they are. The average tuition in U.S. Jewish day schools is 35,000. It moves up into the range of 40 to 60K plus, particularly in non-Orthodox Jewish day schools, in Jewish high schools, and Jewish day schools that are in major urban centers. How many of you are associated with a community where your day schools are in the 40K plus range? Look around the room. How about 60? Okay, we got one, we got two. Okay. 50% of all enrolled families pay full tuition in Jewish day schools. That means the other 50% don't. Where do those additional makeup dollars come from? A lot of fundraising, a lot of philanthropy, and that's tough work. And in contrast, Lisa, again, here's part of your story, 75% of enrolled families in other independent schools pay full tuition. So we are behind. And finally, a role for philanthropy. So historically, philanthropic support has been a local endeavor and has resulted in a very uneven landscape. I want to just point out a couple of communities, and you're in the room. And I know that there are others that are working on this. I just learned about Cleveland that's got a $180 million day school endowment campaign underway. I just heard about that yesterday, so they'll be on the map when they get there. They're halfway there, apparently. But you know who you are. The folks in Toronto leading the way with roughly on the way to about a $200 million endowment, although Dan told me today in Canadian dollars that's about 12 cents. But you're good. You'll hear from Dan in a minute. Our friends up in Montreal, Joel Siegel, if you want to raise your hand. Anybody else from Montreal here? Natana, yes, and others have been working on day school enrollment and affordability efforts there for quite a long time. The folks in Chicago, both on the JUF side, the Federation side, as well as the Foundation side, the Crown Family Philanthropies, major tuition affordability initiatives there and endowment work there as well. Greater Metro West New Jersey, the folks in Atlanta, the Zalek Foundation, Amanda, I think, is here, and Helen's here. Great, the work that they've been doing. The folks in Los Angeles and Seattle, the Samus Foundation. I don't see, are the Samus folks here? Okay, in absentia, the Samus folks. So I think all of you probably sitting in this room would like to see lots more dots up here the next time I get up and bore you with lots of statistics. So thank you so much for your time and your focus and your interest, and we hope this is helpful to sort of level set as we continue in this conversation. Oh, okay. Should I stop there?
Thank you, Wendy. That was very important and interesting and actually exciting, what could be on the horizon. My name is Ann Pava, along with my husband, Jeremy, and more of you know our director of our foundation, Dina Fuchs. I am the president of Micah Philanthropies, our family foundation. I'm really beyond honored but excited to be here today. I am the co-chair of JFNA's Committee on Jewish Community and Jewish Life. I am a past board chair of Prisma. All of my favorite people are in this room, and my dream come true was always to have this kind of session at the GA, so I'm so excited that you're all here. And is Jacob still here? Oh, so I wanted to tell Jacob that my 7-year-old grandson is at the Posnack School in Fort Lauderdale, and I took a picture and sent it to my daughter-in-law to tell her what she has to look forward to. So, okay. As we've heard from from Wendy and others, now is the time that will impact generations to come. And it's not only leadership in North America that is taking note, but also the government of Israel. It is incredibly important and wonderful that the government of Israel, led by the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and combating anti-Semitism, is also focused on expanding day schools. I am thrilled to congratulate the ministry and United on the official launch of Project Aleph Bet, which will bring $4 million over the next 2 years to 7 excellent day school initiatives here in North America. Congratulations to Director General Avi Cohen-Scally and the United team. Thank you. While financial resources are important, perhaps even more important is the message that the Israeli government understands the necessity of educated and committed Jewish leaders and the role of Jewish day schools in developing our young people. So we have a video we are about to show you. Thank you.
Dear friends, 2 years ago, I had the privilege to become the Minister of Diaspora Affairs of the State of Israel. After several months in Rome, we've decided together, me and my CEO, Avi Cohen-Scally, that the main mission of the office would be to empower Jewish education in North America, the largest Jewish community outside of Israel. In order to succeed, we understood immediately that we must collaborate with the federations, with Derek Fingerhart, with major philanthropic foundations, with Prisma, with everyone who is in that field a meaningful player. And fortunately, we've managed, despite the war and despite we needed to cut the budget, but still we've managed to launch Aleph Bet project and to start with several pilots with serious investment from both the Federation, philanthropic foundations, and the State of Israel. And I believe that this is only the beginning. We are going to do it, we are going to succeed, and we are going to have more kids in Jewish education, both in elementary schools and high schools. And אם לא עכשיו, מתי? This is the chance, because of the war, because of the challenges, to create a real change. And I believe in it, and I want to thank each and every one of you for the partnership, for the trust, and בעזרת השם נעשה ונצליח. God bless you.
Hi, everyone. I am Gail Norrie, and I am honored to serve as the Vice Chair of Prisma and also a member of the JFNA Board. And I am really thrilled to be with all of you here today and also to have our two wonderful organizations partnering, working together on this critical initiative. With my friend and colleague and the board chair of Prisma, Lisa Cole, we wrote an article in E-Jewish Philanthropy aiming to start a conversation about how we might contemplate the seemingly impossible and attract major new investments in day schools. Lisa and I have received so much positive feedback, and we believe now is the time to act, and we need to be bold. If we make the right investments, the question is, can we deliver a big increase in day school enrollment? Today, through very brief examples, we will demonstrate how some in the room are already making this happen, growing enrollment in their schools and investing in the major levers to address excellence, affordability, and ensure that the most talented teachers and administrators are there for us to nurture. These efforts could be adapted to other communities or might serve as the basis for a multi-community approach. Obviously, there is a lot more to each of these examples than we have the time to go into today. But we want you to get a sense of how those who are already achieving success in this space are doing it, and allows us to think together if these have the potential for replication. I'd like to introduce our next presenters who are going to pop up from where they are seated and share a little more. First will be Asaf Gamzu, the Director of Education at United Ed. Then, when he is finished, we will hear from Dr. Dan Held, the Chief Program Officer at UJA Federation of Toronto, and then our wonderful Helen Zalek, the co-founder of the Zalek Foundation and JFNA board member. So thank you all so much for being here today. And to our presenters, I'm going to now turn it over to Asaf.
Hi, everyone. Whoa. Hi, I'm sorry. Hello. How are you? So I'm Asaf Gamzu. I'm Director of Education for United. United is a platform of the Ministry for Diaspora Affairs. We try and work with day schools around the world in resources, in teacher training, and other services. We operate Aleph Bet in the North American space. But I'm here actually to talk to you about other places around the world. So I want to talk about the UK and what they did to change enrollment. So in the 1980s, there were policy changes in the UK unrelated to Jews, okay? Nothing to do with us, that moved away from what they're calling state schools, but are actually private schools, that were then something that many Jewish families chose to partake in. And so what Lord Rabbi Sachs did is he galvanized the community, seized upon that opportunity, and made Jewish day schools a priority for philanthropy and for leadership. That priority meant investment, it meant new schools, it meant making the existing schools better, it meant checking government compatibility, and in this process, from less than 25% of Jewish kids in schools, today, the majority of Jewish children in the UK, at least 65%, go to Jewish day schools. 40% of non-Orthodox Jewish families send their kids to Jewish day schools. All right, so that's number one. They can get an applause, it's okay. They're not here, but they did well. Kol hakavod lahem, okay. Now we'll move to France. In France, rising anti-Semitism, this started 20, 30 years ago, and what they did is they joined forces. We're very proud to be part of that initiative, Choisir les Écoles Juives, and they have a very specific, tailor-made project where they do digital marketing, they accompany families, and they do have some form of scholarship, and we've been working them for 5 years, and before October 7th, more than 900 children transferred from public schools, to Jewish day schools. 900 children a year. And that meant a significant change from 16% of Jewish children in 1986 to at least 35 to 40% of Jewish children today going to Jewish day schools in France. Let's give the French, also, come on. Yeah. So as my lovely Israeli students would ask me, what are you talking about? Well, what do you want to say, Asaf? Yalla. What I mean to say is, change in the status quo of enrollment is possible. It's possible with creative, specific solutions of the communities, but it has to have a united, resourceful leadership. And most of that is sitting in this room right now. So good luck, B'atzlacha, we're here to help.
What an incredible blessing to be here. It really is a privilege. I'd like to share the story of Toronto's Jewish day schools over the last 5 or 10 years through 2 stories. The first story is the story of Tannenbaum Chat. Tannenbaum Chat is our community high school. But more importantly, we know that Tannenbaum Chat is actually the bellwether for the future vibrancy and vitality of our community. In disproportionate numbers, these students go on to become camp counselors and Hillel student leaders, like Jacob is, and eventually they become lay leaders and donors in our community. But between 2007 and 2017, enrollment at Tannenbaum Chat was dropping precipitously. It dropped by about a third over those 10 years. At the same time, tuition went up by 50%. In 2017, thanks to the generosity of two remarkable donors, with gifts totaling $14 million to be spent over 5 years, we launched the Tannenbaum Chat Affordability Initiative. The program reduced tuition by a third, from $28,000 to $18,500. The result has been remarkable. In 2017, there were 175 students enrolled in 9th grade. By 2019, that number had grown to 298, and today, this September, there were 384 students in 9th grade. From the Tannenbaum Chat Affordability Initiative, we learned about vicious and virtuous cycles. We moved the school from a vicious cycle where increasing tuition was leading to lower enrollment, which negatively impacted the school's perceived quality and its ability to invest in teaching and learning. We moved it from that vicious cycle to a virtuous cycle where scholarships catalyzed increased enrollment, higher perceived value, increasing investments in teaching and learning. And it's important to note that the philanthropist's investment here was in scholarships, in pricing. But that input in scholarships was able to impact the entire ecosystem. 2 years after the launch of the Tannenbaum Chat Affordability Initiative, a group of philanthropists came to us, and they had seen this hockey stick curve, that's what we call it in Canada, in the growth of enrollment. And the group of philanthropists turned to us and said, "What's your plan for the elementary schools?" So we developed a plan for our elementary schools. 9 elementary schools spanning the religious spectrum of Toronto. The elementary schools were facing a very similar problem to Tannenbaum Chat. Over the 17 previous years, enrollment had dropped by about 20%, while tuition had doubled. The same vicious cycle of increasing price, lowering enrollment. Together with leading philanthropists, we set up a plan for the Generations Trust, an endowment to support our schools with 3 goals. The first, to increase enrollment by offering scholarships that would cap tuition at a proportion of household income. The second, to secure the long-term financial sustainability of the schools by capping the increase in the cost to educate to inflationary increases. And the third, to strengthen educational excellence by setting criteria on both the Jewish studies side and the general studies side. We've now offered Generations Trust scholarships for 4 years. You can't quite see the numbers here. But over the last 4 years, we've increased enrollment in non-Orthodox schools by more than 400 students. And I should say that for next September, we're out of space. To meet demand, yesterday, 3 schools in a coordinated move announced the opening of 3 new kindergarten classes to make room for the 89 kids, 4-year-olds, the 89 4-year-olds who are on waiting lists for next year. The impact of these moves, both the Tannenbaum Chat Affordability Initiative and the Generations Trust, has had a profound impact on the individual kids who can now get an education, on the schools who have moved from a vicious cycle to a virtuous cycle. But I think perhaps more importantly, it's had an impact on the future vibrancy and vitality of our community, as we're going to see the fruit that they bear as they become camp counselors and Hillel student leaders and philanthropists and lay leaders into the future.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Zalek, and I have a confession to make. I did not make that slide. And I'll tell you, if I did make that slide, I would have put many more logos. This slide is misleading. It makes you think that this is a Zalek Foundation initiative. And the truth is, it really is not. We might have been the original thinkers of the idea, but this initiative from the get-go has been a community-wide project. We partnered with the Jewish Federation, thank you of Atlanta, who's here, and the Marcus Foundation, and several other prominent family and philanthropists in Atlanta to bring this community professional tuition grant to our city. So the first thing that I will say is that, in my experience thus far, If you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go in a group. So I apologize for the misleading slide, but here we are. I will then share that unlike Wendy Rosoff and unlike Jacob, I do not have a Jewish education. I am an immigrant from the Soviet Union, and I am a proud recipient and a beneficiary of a tremendous amount of funding from the Jewish Federation's federated systems. However, I've always recognized the importance of that which I do not have, so as soon as my children were of age, my husband and I immediately thought, of course, we're going to send them to a Jewish day school. And it is once we got to be inside the belly of the beast that we realized that not everybody sent their children to a Jewish day school. And we very quickly started to ask why. And Lord and behold, all of the reasons that Wendy had pointed out on her slide earlier came to be. The quality was perceived less, the cost was deemed unaffordable. So my husband and I were overwhelmed by this problem. Like many of you, it seemed unsolvable, too big to even attempt. But that has never stopped us, and if you know my husband, you would know that that is very much true. He is an entrepreneur at heart, and if there's a challenge, he definitely wants to try to solve it. So we went at it, and we decided, okay, we really want to increase enrollment. That's the challenge, right? We want to increase enrollment at the school by making it more affordable, but somehow not penalize the families that are already enrolled in the system, right? How do you give discounts? How do you incentivize new people to come without all the longtime supporters being up in arms? So we thought, okay, how do we go about solving this problem? Well, is there a demographic that we would be thrilled to support who is already enrolled and whose children we would love to encourage to attend more? Well, there are probably many such segments of society, and you could pick anyone. The first one that came to mind for us were the Jewish professionals, not just the educators, although of course the educators, but really anyone. Clergy, right, rabbis, marketing executives, HR, I did not care, we did not care where the Jewish professionals were employed, but if they were spending their time in a Jewish institution supporting it, for sure they were underpaid. That's just the reality of life. So we thought, okay, we're going to offer a 50% tuition assistance to all of the children of the Jewish professionals. What we discovered was that many of the schools were already giving some kind of discounts to teachers' children. Some were also giving discounts to other professionals who had reached out, but the discounts were not consistent. 10%, 20%, 30%. It was kind of under the table. People didn't talk about it. So to be able to reward our professionals in an open way and to tell them that we value them, we see them, we encourage them has been a tremendous, tremendous bonus and a benefit of this program. We've had quite a lot of success because the funds that were freed up from our investment of the 50%, the funds that the schools had already allocated, we had asked for the schools to please reinvest in excellence. So that meant that every school that was already allocating any kind of scholarship monies to the kids of professionals would reinvest that funds, whether it would be in increased teacher salaries, new programs, or anything else that would strengthen their school. So over the course of 4 years, over $4 million has been reinvested back into those schools' excellence. The program has had some other unintended but wonderful consequences, benefits. First of all, we learned that, I didn't even know we had that slide. We learned that 3 of the 4 professionals surveyed said that they were influenced to stay in their jobs because of this benefit. Also, the retention and recruitment in general has been greatly enhanced through this program. And finally, so many of the professionals are actually influencers. When they stand at the pulpit or in the community and they talk about where they send their kids to school, whereas previously, perhaps tacitly, they were giving permission to their congregants or their communities to send their kids to a public school or a non-Jewish private school. Now, the influencer effect of a rabbi standing and saying, I send my kids to Jewish day school and it's important, has been tremendous. We have completely increased enrollment tremendously. We now have over 200 Jewish kids, over 400 Jewish kids are part of this program, and over 200 Jewish professionals have been impacted. This is highly replicable and quite easily, I think, transferable to other communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asaf, Dan, and also Helen. That was really inspiring. And it is now my honor to introduce Paul Bernstein, the wonderful CEO of Prisma.
Thank you, Gail, and thanks to Asaf, to Dan, and to Helen for sharing those important examples. Each of those cases shows us what is possible, and particularly in a world where so many people feel like the challenges they experience are too big to grapple, they demonstrate to us that you can start with very tangible, very practical things and build from there and really have impact. So thank you for all of those. 5 years ago, day schools were seen as in decline. Some even questioned whether they have a future. Now we see enrollment growth year on year, as Wendy shared. The quality of more and more of our schools is shining through, and they are vibrant centers of their communities. We have the data, Wendy shared a lot of it, to show that day schools are at the heart of what is needed to build a thriving Jewish community in the future. Let me share a couple of examples of what we have been learning. Knowing how important the campus situation really is, we've seen, as Richard mentioned, the leadership of day school alumni on campus in addition to the examples he shared. You may remember the incredibly valuable letter that Columbia students wrote in the spring. The 4 writers of those letters were all day school alumni. But not just that. Based on the research that Eitan Hirsch did, supported by the Jim Joseph Foundation, among current students on campus, day school alumni are twice as likely to say that Jewish identity is very important to them compared to non-day school students. And they are 4 times as likely to feel a strong connection to Israel. As you've heard, enrollment has been growing consistently since 2020. To build on what Wendy said, we are actually building the census data that we will be able to report to in order to track the field going forward and across what we call the Prisma network of schools. That is all the schools from non-denominational to centrist Orthodox, so not including the Haredi and Hasidic schools, but in that network of schools, there are about just over 300 schools in the US and Canada, and our enrollment is at around 92,000. This year, our survey is showing another increase in enrollment of 1.3% alone. Nearly 60% of our schools are reporting transfers from public and independent schools, so Lynn's story is not just one person's story. It really is what we're seeing in many places. And we are seeing students enroll because of the current climate. So, we need to act. We need to act passionately to seize the moment that is in front of us. Even while we focus on the dual traumas of the attacks on Israel and anti-Semitism, we have this third pillar. And Julie laid it out in her opening at the GA yesterday and said it again to us today. And thank you, Julie, for your leadership on this. Investing in the future of Jewish life through deep Jewish education, particularly day schools, but including camps and others, is essential. And as we hear from the examples we've had, we know what works. Dan shared a really important concept that we believe very passionately in, and that is the idea of creating a virtuous cycle of growth. I will give you a slightly simpler model of it, just to think of 4 components that each feed on us. At the center of it is excellence. Excellence drives enrollment. In order to get excellence, we need talent, because our teachers and our school leaders are at the center of making that possible. And of course, we have to address affordability. Driving up enrollment, doing it through excellence, achieving excellence through talent, addressing affordability, that's the accelerator that can power all of our schools, and that works across all of our denominations. How we move this forward is by working together, which is why we are so appreciative of the partnership and leadership provided by JFNA, Eric, Julie, and the entire team. Moreover, the recognition by the State of Israel, as demonstrated by the Minister for Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism, is really important to helping us articulate the message for the future, and we're grateful to the work of the ministry and for what United is doing. We know the challenges are big. We know there are many calls on everyone's time and on everyone's funding, but now is the moment for us to invest in this and find the things that tangibly can move our field forward and can really drive up enrollment as one of the key measures of success. We're ready to support you. We're ready to partner with you to make seemingly impossible dreams happen. We're ready to create that accelerator in the virtuous cycle of growth, to grow enrollment, build excellence, invest in talent, and tackle affordability. Before we move to the next phase of the conversation and have conversations at our table, I want to share one example of what is possible. Right now, as Wendy highlighted, we need to raise awareness about the value of Jewish day schools across our communities and to drive enrollment growth. That's why we're aiming to launch a bold enrollment marketing campaign, and we want to partner with communities and schools to make it happen. The challenge we've looked at in designing this campaign with the help of an incredible agency called BALD, based in Atlanta, which is led by day school alumni who are incredibly passionate about this, is really tapping into parent sentiment to create a campaign that communicates the value of day schools. We've been developing the thinking about what the audience looks like, and one of the things that we learned when enrollment went up during COVID is there are many families who've thought about day schools who may have decided not to send their kids there for all the reasons that we are familiar with, but once we get them on the inside, they fall in love and they stay. So we are looking for Jewish families who are affiliated and engaged, but there may be barriers that are preventing them from making day schools their first choice. And there is a secondary, and Lynn, talking about your husband, sort of helped us think about this. There are Israeli families, too, that we may want to address as well. We call this the movable middle. We've thought about and researched the messaging opportunities about fostering the future, and from the student and the family's perspective, to think about how easy it is for you to be there. And through the research that we did with BALD, have started thinking about the insights, the way that day schools are a strong foundation of identity, and its community empowers students, and the way that day schools enable those students to have a clear self of self and values, and it enables them to face any challenge in front of them, exactly as we've heard today. So the idea we've been developing is, when you know who you are, you can be anything. That is the campaign idea that we want to aspire to. It showcases, if you like, the roots, the strong sense of identity and belonging that grounds students, and the wings that gives them the confidence and skills to soar in the world and be whatever they want to be. And thinking about the gifts that a day school giving you, empowering them to explore limitless possibilities. Sorry, and we don't have sound at the moment. Are we good?
In today's world, the need for community, belonging, and a strong Jewish foundation is more important than ever.
Students choose Jewish schools. Enrollment soared to a record high.
We all seek a place where we feel known, valued, and supported. To know our community, our culture, and our history. To find our place in the world, we need a place to find our people.
Jewish day schools provide a core foundation in a way that I don't think any other experience can.
These schools offer more than an education. They're places of connection, rooted in tradition and culture, helping students build a strong support system. Because when you know who you are, you can be anything.
In this pivotal moment, we are crafting a powerful campaign that showcases the values and foundations that a Jewish day school provides.
This campaign enables us to support schools by amplifying their role in nurturing Jewish identity and community, empowering students to go into the world as the next generation of leaders.
From the minute I stepped into the classroom, I felt like I was at home, and I felt like I had an authentic purpose. I really feel like my Jewish day school education was a gift.
We're in the process of building this campaign. I want to thank JFNA and United for supporting us to do it. The idea is not to run something simply from the center. The idea is we partner with schools to empower them, and that we partner with communities to do something for an entire community in order to build it. So there will be a rollout that we are developing as we attract the resources to make this campaign possible, and we'll be providing a school kit to tools, a toolkit to schools. A school toolkit to make it possible for them to use the campaign. There are going to be a lot of tools within it, and one of the things that Helen talked about is the importance of influences. That is influences among your friends, influences in your community, like the rabbi's example, but also major influences in our communities. That no matter what Alex Edelman says about his experience at Maimonides School, he is an incredible ambassador for the Jewish day school world, given who he is and everything he's achieved. And there are other people like him. So we are ready to build this campaign and to roll it out. We want to get it out quickly in the next weeks and months in order to meet this year's enrollment season. But think of it as a long-term investment, really to raise awareness and ultimately to help all of the work, because the marketing campaign on its own does not make an increase in enrollment. There is a lot of work that really will drive this and to drive the virtuous circle. So thank you. Huge thanks to all of the previous speakers, not just for what you have said today, but also for your leadership on behalf of your schools, your communities, and the entire network of day schools. A thanks to Sarah, to Dina, to Phoebe, who have made this gathering possible. A thank you to you from the Prisma team at the end of an intense conference that we can fill this room and have this conversation. It is, as we continue the conversation, Eric in a moment is going to lay out what we do next, but we want to continue the conversation in many ways, and it would be remiss of me not to suggest one place. If you're wishing for the next conference, the Prisma conference is taking place in beautiful Boston at the beginning of February. We would love to see as many of you as possible there. It is now my privilege to hand over to Eric, and thank you, Eric, for all that JFNA is doing.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to all of you. I echo the appreciation for you staying this extra time, and also to all of our partners. And you've been sitting a long time, and you've been listening to a lot of information. So I want to be very, very brief and say that the word campaign, of course, has many elements to it. A campaign is a marketing campaign, it's a political campaign, it's an influencers campaign, public relations campaign, and of course it has financial elements to it as well. I want to be really, really clear from the start. We don't have a plan for a financial campaign at a national level yet. But it's absolutely clear to us that if we're ever going to do something significant on a national level, this is the right time to do it. The biggest reason why I'm convinced that's the case is because of the individual case studies that you've heard about from the communities, right? When major communities with major sources of philanthropy, like we've seen, our friends in Toronto, our friends in Atlanta, our friends in Cleveland, our friends in Chicago and Detroit and other places are already taking this initiative, if there's ever a signal that the market is telling you that they're ready for something, then I believe that is it. There's a real virtue to collecting together the individual campaigns, not disrupting them, not in any way changing what their individual goals are, but presenting them together as a collective national effort. Because, let's face it, when you present something together in a collective way, when you add together the numbers that have already been achieved in the individual communities, the bigger number gets the headline, it gets the attention, it gets people to start to penetrate the consciousness that, wow, my goodness, these 5-6 communities have raised $100 million for their $200 million, whatever numbers, for their day schools. Wow, that's an amazing number. That gets people's attention. And then other people in other communities start to say, wow, maybe we should do that too, and we can do that in our communities. And families whose names are on the doors of these day schools say, well, we can do that too in our communities, or the second generation or third generation of those families who are so proud of seeing their family name repeated when the day school name is repeated. I just, listening to the students, they name the schools. The schools are carrying the names of some of the greatest philanthropists and sources of philanthropy in our communities. And those people see the headline and say, wow, look what Toronto's doing. Wow, look what Atlanta's doing. And say, how do we become part of that? Let's face it. People want to be on winning campaigns. They want to be on winning teams. They want to be there when the train is gaining steam, is gaining speed. And so that's the opportunity that we have when we see the activities that you're involved in right now in your communities, and we know the urgency of it. Then we think that this is the right time to think about how do we collect this into the kind of movement that Gail spoke about. So let me just try to get into a little bit of tachlis, not a lot, but just framing for your table discussions. I had to duck out because we had another meeting going on across the hall about another great crisis in our world, and that is Ukraine. But I know that the statistic that first of all, if you break down the universe of our children, we know that in the Orthodox community that day school attendance is the norm, right? And the overwhelming majority of children being raised in Orthodox families are Baruch Hashem going to day schools. So the primary area for growth is in the non-Orthodox segments of our community. And I believe the statistic, Wendy can correct me if I'm wrong, was that roughly 10%, I like to round up a little bit, roughly 10%, not close enough, Wendy, it's not outside of this, it's not like a polling where, plus or minus statistical significance. Roughly 10% of non-Orthodox students are currently in day school. Could we double that number? Could we seek to reach 20%? In a campaign of a number of years to get there? It doesn't feel to me like that is an unreachable goal, and it gives people something both realistic but ambitious to achieve. And by the way, we're already on our way there, right? You heard Paul talk about the calls that are coming in from people. So the campaign's already started. We're already moving this train from 10 to 20%. But what if we officially set that goal? I want you to think about that as you're in your table conversations. So that's the enrollment numbers, right? Now let's talk money. Right? We have to talk money. So again, the statistic, the baseline that I understand to be the case is that apart from tuition dollars, roughly $500 million a year of supplemental funds are going into our day schools. You understand? You're following what I'm saying? So tuition plus $500 million, that's the rough budgets of day schools. Of that $500 million, It breaks down roughly into $350 million today of philanthropy and $150 million of public funds. You still with me? So think about total revenue for day schools, $500 million tuition, tuition, whatever that number is, plus $500 million. The $500 million breaks down into $350 philanthropy, $150 public. Now I want to talk about the public piece for 1 second. One of the reasons why I believe there's never going to be a better time to do this is not only all the environment reasons that we've been discussing, anti-Semitism and the surge in Jewish identity, but obviously the public policy direction is towards greater funding and greater flexibility in funding of schools. And I'm going to be even more blunt with you. There are now 5 or 6 states with major Jewish populations that have universal voucher programs: Florida, Texas, Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, just Pennsylvania now, right? And I'm probably missing some smaller states. Just picture the Jewish communities in those states alone. Florida, Texas, Ohio. I know a little bit about Ohio, and Pennsylvania and Arizona. The growing Jewish community in Phoenix, and that's the 6th largest metropolitan area in the country, folks, with a fast-growing Jewish population. Now go back to my 10 to 20% goal. Is it not achievable when you have all of those states creating a baseline financial opportunity that we have to tap into and probably add on to, right? So let's go back to the philanthropy now. The truth is that probably we're not going to achieve the quality goals that we seek for our community with just the voucher dollars. But how much easier is the philanthropic hurdle if you start with the voucher dollars that are going to be available. By the way, some of that $150 million isn't vouchers. Some of that, or school choice, whatever they're calling it in different states, some of that is the special services dollars. So Eric in New York, you are a huge advocate. UJ Federation of New York is a massive advocate for supplemental dollars that pay for things like special education and disability, access and security and all the other costs that even states that aren't going to adopt. Lonnie, Chicago, Illinois is probably not going to be a school choice state anytime soon, right? Either is New York, either is California, Richard, Noah. But your advocacy, I can't believe I went to Richard and Noah before I went to Julie. What am I thinking? Julie's that's right. She's a citizen of the world. That's why. Your advocacy and our advocacy in public affairs, again, security, special education, these things take a huge burden off of the cost of the schools. And many of you were at our new flagship public affairs office in Washington, D.C. Last night, and if you weren't there, you'll be at it soon when it opens officially on January 1st. And I can assure you that one of our top priorities is to advocate for federal support for special services and security, more security dollars. The nonprofit security grant program is already up to over $500 million, and there's other ideas on the table for funding public. So we're never going to have a better atmosphere for public investment, and then of course that brings us back to philanthropy. And we know that our community is blessed with significant resources, and that many of those foundations and major philanthropists love and care about Jewish education. They understand the case that's being made here. We've seen 8- and 9-figure giving now to Jewish medical schools and to other institutions, and it's simply not unimaginable to any of us in this room that the philanthropic community in America, the Jewish community, and frankly in the world, will respond. Let's put a rough goal there too. If our goal is to increase by 10 to 20% the non-Orthodox penetration in day schools, we probably need to increase from $500 million to $1 billion a year. non-tuition dollars that are going into day schools. I don't think that is unachievable in today's public policy and today's philanthropic environment. So I give that to you as a conversation tool as well. Can we get can we double the penetration of the non-Orthodox community, and can we double the annual non-tuition dollars, both from philanthropic and public policy and public sources, into the campaign, into the resources we do, and in doing that, and in so doing, how do we do that? Now, there are two steps to this, I think. The first is what you just saw. We have a marketing campaign that's been developed by a skillful marketing team of professional PRs. I understand, did you say, Paul, that they went to day school? The people who prepared it went to day school. We should help that campaign. We should get behind that campaign. We should resource that campaign. I ask everybody to think about how you can help resource it, whether it's a federation or you have a donor advised fund or your own philanthropic support. We need to resource that campaign. And while that campaign is running, then we need to develop the strategy to get from 10 to 20% and to double our non-tuition resources in this. I totally believe that we can do this, but this is the group of people, the thinking you're going to have around the tables that's going to enable us to do that. You know that I can't leave without, because we've had a meal without just a word of Torah. One of my favorite pieces of Gemara, which I don't have to explain what Gemara is to this group. I know, thank goodness to be in a group I don't have to explain it. Is the famous discussion of what does Vishinantam Levanecha mean, right? What does it mean to teach your children? And at first, the rabbis said it means that each person teaches their own children. And that makes sense, right? That's the literal meaning. But then along came Yeshua ben Gamla, who's quoted in Baba Batra, about whom they say this discussion saved the Jewish people. That's what they say in the Talmud. This discussion saved the Jewish people. Yeshua ben Gamla says, wait, that doesn't make sense, because what if you can't teach your child? What if you're unable to? You're at work, or what if the child doesn't have a father? Who teaches? So then they said, well, then we'll create a school in Jerusalem so they can send people to the school in Jerusalem. And Yeshua ben Gamla says, but wait a minute, not everybody's going to send their kids, to the school in Jerusalem. So then they said, then every school, every city, every community has to establish a school. And there's even one more detail. They said, but what if they don't have space for it? And they said the community must donate the land. You must, as a community, make available the space and the land for the school. So we know it's our responsibility. I think we have a golden opportunity here. Let's take advantage of it. I want to thank our friends in the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and United. I want you to know that they inspired us, they pushed us long before October 7th to get started, and they're our full partners, even though we can't get the resources that have come from Israel are enormously appreciated, but we know they need the resources there right now. So this is something we're going to do ourselves, but we're not going to do it without their help and their support and their inspiration. And I thank them. And finally, once again, thank Prisma for your leadership. And we're so excited to work together. And now I get to turn over to my good friend, Rena Koppelman.
Good afternoon. I know people need to leave, and when you need to leave, do what you have to, but also please take this conversation with you, and please think about how you can keep this conversation going, because it is so important. I want to thank Paul and Eric for organizing this day and setting this up so nicely. And, twice as many kids and $1 billion. Not at all aspirational, but hopefully not impossible. I am Rena Koppelman. I am a JFNA board member. I am a day school grad. I am a day school parent. My kids went to the same schools as Wendy with their new names. And I, like Anne, am so happy to see this group together, because so many of us have been doing this work in our communities and in our focus areas for so long, But as Eric and Paul have said, we need to think bigger and we need to think wider. And this is the time to dig in to what you've heard and to have conversations at your table. So at every table, the questions are there. The questions maybe will be on the screen if I can figure out how to do this. Maybe I can't. But anyway, I'm not going to, oh, they're there. I'm not going to read the questions because they're on your table. There should be someone at your table to take notes, and then we're going to go around and get feedback. Okay? We want to understand what has resonated with you. What next steps do you think we should pursue as we look to launch this two-pronged effort? And I'm going to, chime in and let you know when we're running out of time. At the end, we're going to ask one person from each table to share one aha moment from today, something that left an impression, something that you think you can do in your community, someone you can talk to make this move forward. We will have full notes drafted after the day, and we will share them. You're going to have about 20 minutes for discussion. But again, a reminder, Eric always comes forward with a can-do perspective. If we're going to solve this, how do we do it? I believe we can do it, and we need the wisdom of all of you in the room to do it. So let's start. 20 minutes. The clock is on. You've got about 10 minutes left. We're about halfway done. You've got about 5 minutes left, and then we're going to ask everyone to share one aha moment from the table.
Okay, folks, the 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. Okay, folks. First, I'm supposed to be the call to action, but you don't really need a call to action. Sorry to interrupt this great conversation. At our table, we had a most amazing moment when one of the people at our table said that they moved to a community 3 years ago, enrolled their children in public school, and made a decision last year to, which is now this year, to move their 3 children into Jewish day schools, something I never believed that they would do, and they are doing remarkably well. So it was beautiful to hear that. So first, I want to start with some thank yous. I want to thank Paul. I want to thank Prisma. I want to thank the Jewish Federations of North America, Eric, Sarah, Dina, Phoebe, United, the ministry, everybody that helped put this together. It's pretty remarkable. We've been through 30 plus hours, 40 hours of a very intense GA, and then to have you stay and do this when it's over. The only benefit you really got out of this was the free lunch at the back instead of the boxes. So I just want to say the following. I am a product of Jewish day schools. My mother and stepfather sent me to the modern Orthodox day school when I was in the 4th grade. And I remember every Tuesday night, my parents would go to a bingo game which was the main fundraiser for the day school, because I was sent on a scholarship. And I never forgot that, and I always remembered how dedicated they were to it. When World War II ended, and the Holocaust ended, and the Sharas HaPleta, the last remnants of Europe came to America, there was a rabbi, Rabbi Shraga Feivel Mendelovich. He was a great personality who said, any city that has 5,000 Jews has to start a day school. And the Orthodox jumped into it, and the non-Orthodox did not. I believe if he were around today, he would say, not that I'm anywhere near his greatness, I say it all the time. In my community of Detroit, we have a conservative day school called Hillel, and I believe Hillel is the backstop of my Jewish community. I'm the president of the Orthodox Jewish Day School. I have been for many years. We have 1,400 children in the school, and everybody Orthodox sends their kids. It's not even a discussion. But Hillel, and then our community high school, which is called Frankel, those two schools are the backstop of the Jewish people. If we don't get those children into those schools, we will have a very different community in 20 and 30 and 40 years. I see from the children that come out of Hillel and Frankel that they are good, solid, educated Jews who really understand the program. And those are the kids that we need more than anything. And when you hear the percentage, 10%, and we pat ourselves on the back a little bit, it's really not the right number. And especially now, post-October 7th, we know the kids on the college campuses, if they had gone to Jewish day schools, they would be more equipped. Certainly not better, but more equipped. And so it's our job to figure out as a community what to do. So when you go back to your communities and you hear this discussion, and I have to tell you, I'm extremely proud of Eric Fingerhut. The Jewish Federations of North America in our communities, we're all in the business of Jewish education. Prisma is a fabulous organization, and anybody that's involved in Jewish day schools. But when you're the leader of the Jewish Federations of North America, you have to figure out the areas of United, and those are the areas that you have to push. So in the Jewish Federations of North America, it was live secure. It's physical security. You don't have to argue with anybody about that. It's Israel. You don't have to argue about that with anybody. Anti-Semitism, we all get it. But the Jewish day schools are always running behind. And for Eric to say, this is going to be a new part of the challenge of the Jewish people going forward, and the Jewish Federations in North America is going to partner in this, is the message. Because until the federations, who all give money to Jewish day schools, until the federations really put their muscle behind it, it's not going to happen. And so this room is critical. So I thank all of you for making this a priority. I know that everybody in this room believes in Jewish Day School. Go back to your communities and use these words to your philanthropists, to your leaders of your community. The organizations like the Ministry of Diaspora, like United, like Prisma, they get it, they understand it, but they're talking to a very small segment of the community. We need to talk to everybody and explain why this is so important. And it does not matter what it is, if it's Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, it's kids spending time in the Jewish day schools. Take the example of what the Zaliks are doing in Atlanta. What a remarkable, remarkable achievement. So that is the call to action today. You're all committed, you all believe it, you all understand it. The ministry understands it. Yom Tov, we thank you for being here. It's a remarkable opportunity, and I think the Jewish Federations in North America using this as the end of the General Assembly in 2024 will have a huge difference in 10 years from now. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
All right, a quick thank you for Gary for an incredible couple of days. So before we get started with the table conversation, I just want to show that this is a picture on my phone. You can't see it. This is at least 10 years ago. It's called the percentage of Jewish children aged 5 to 17 attending Jewish day schools. It was one of the first pictures I figured I had a favorite on my phone, because 10 years ago. And it really goes through all of the communities, large and small, and their percentages. Wendy, I would love to be able to figure out with you, with Paul, how to update this. and more so in 10 years, and see where we fell from 10 years and where we're going 10 years from now, because I think that would be super, super powerful. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've loved the lively conversation, and there was a lot of laughter. I want to go table to table and hear what one aha moment is. Please wait for the microphone, and let's see if we can get some great ideas that we can all take home. If you have to leave, we understand, and please keep the conversation going. Please follow up with Paul, with Eric, with any of the lay leaders you know, with the professionals in your community. Double the number of students, double the number of money. The microphone's in the back. So the back table where Lonnie is. Can someone kind of just give us one aha moment that came out of that table?
Okay, quick aha moment. We all agreed that for us to really go from 500 to $1 billion, as Eric put out there, we're going to have to get Jewish non-day school donors involved and captivated by this concept.
100%. Okay, you want to send it to Arnie's right behind you? Nope, Arnie's not going. You're another table. Okay, let's move the microphone to the table over there.
Hi, everyone. Sam Roth here with the Ronald Lauder Impact Initiative. We talked about different approaches, and we're very fortunate to be part of the Project Aleph Bet cohort, and that as we converge and look at our proximal goals, our distal goals, everything gets more similar. We are all working towards the same outcome. There are just very different ways we can get there, whether it's pipeline in early childhood centers or communal engagement around a day school. There are so many different ways we can do this, and recognizing there's not one answer. There's nuance in every community, in every approach, and by testing out multiple things simultaneously, we will find the answers, we'll find what works, what doesn't work, and then hopefully adapt that and scale it to the entire country.
Please, God. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Alexandra LaForge with the Coombe Family Foundation, and I'm calling out two ahas. The first is we kept coalescing around this idea of excellence first. If we can create excellent schools, help people understand that they're excellent, and build the demand, philanthropy and some of our other systems can get us over the finish line, moving that to enrollment, then leading to more affordable systems. But everything feels like it comes back to the excellence and people understanding the excellence. The second piece we talked about was kind of connectivity across organizations that serve families and kids at different stages of life. In the Bay Area where I am, we've got a program where we're really investing in the ECE space. One of our Jewish preschools started partnering with the day school next door. The day school enrollment the next year was 50% higher. And that is essentially handing off, not competing for kids. And so how do we do that too between more of the elementary school age into the high schools where, again, we're handing off, kind of greasing the wheels for people to stay engaged.
Great ideas. Thank you for sharing. Front table.
Look, I think it's getting late, and I actually think everything that needs to be said has been said. I just think one of the things to be focused on, when you're talking about education and you're talking about raising money for education, people will give money if they know what it's going to, okay? So you're really trying to sell Pacific schools, and you're trying to sell ensuring the Jewish future. That's what we're trying to sell. And our greatest advocates for doing that are the kids in the school and the parents, okay, just like we saw here today. So there's nothing more important than our future. These schools are where the kids, where our leaders for our future are going to come from. And I think that we have to, we have to organize as we have. We've had great people here, great ideas, and we have to go sell them within our community, community by community, school by school. And again, Eric, I echo what Gary said. The fact that you've made this a focus here just shows that our priorities are right, and thank you very much for doing that.
Any more ahas that people want to share? Right in the middle, yep.
Hi, I'm Andrea Liesecker. Well, I wanted to share sort of a different angle of an aha moment. in this moment, I sort of think of Jewish community. We've always had this community, and it's like a pulse, and sometimes it's out here, and sometimes it's in here. Right now, we're in an in-here moment, which might have started for a not so, wonderful reason, but we can take advantage of that moment. And from what we came to in our table, one of the ways to do that is to help people be known and feel seen within their community. Not just to honor financial capital, but to honor human capital, to understand what are people's easy gives and light lifts. When people can give, be integrated and involved in the ways that inspire them, then we move things from a sense of obligation to a sense of joy and faith, and a way that we can regenerate each other's spirits through our involvement. So I think it's important that as we think about all of this financial resourcing in the future, the aha moment is, how do we make this something where people are actually getting something that helps them feel more abundant in the process by feeling known, feeling seen, and being able to give what inspires them to be even more involved, which will likely eventually lead to them giving more from their pockets as well.
Thank you. We've got 2 more tables, and if anyone else wants to raise their hand, please share. Oh, Katie, you've got some good ideas, we know.
Hi, I'm Katie Berger. We went with a big, bold idea. I was nominated, so I didn't suggest to talk about this myself, but we are, Chicago is starting a Jewish high school in the city, capitalizing on an opportunity around real estate, but really looking to bring more people in. So there are 3 K-8s in the city, no Jewish high school, but also a tremendous opportunity, given the landscape, to bring people who didn't choose day school K-8 to choose it for high school.
Amazing. Any thoughts from up front that you want to share? No. Yes, no?
Not to repeat everybody, so the only thing that I would add or emphasize is we talked a lot about trust and excellence, and if we're going to be successful as schools, we need both of those things to bring people in and also to retain them.
Okay. Insiders and outsiders, money and enrollment, excellence in the work that we're doing, and excellence in how we tell the stories. I think that's probably a good wrap for today. Thank you. We will convene phone calls. We will share information. If you have more ideas, please share them. Thank you for your extra time, guys.